So it's no secret Yu-Gi-Oh has many archetypes that are inspired by popular media, such as film, TV, even video games. Maybe even your favorite deck is one such archetype. I'm Upgrade Jay, and as a big fan of anime and Yu-Gi-Oh, I fell in love with the idea of adapting anime into Yu-Gi-Oh decks, which is why I decided to make a series where I do just that. Try to adapt various animes into Yu-Gi-Oh archetypes in a show I'd like to call Shonen Yu-Gi-Oh! For this episode, I'll be looking at Dragon Ball Z. So in order to make an archetype, you first need an idea of what you want it to do. And for that, I need to know what I'm going to be adapting from Dragon Ball Z. Now, the show is most famous for characters powering up to unfathomable levels of strength by yelling long enough, combining multiple characters together, or by changing your hair color. Which, for me, is not very interesting for an archetype because A, big numbers is a pretty straightforward idea in Yu Gi Oh! And B, the characters also don't typically gain new abilities when they change their hair color, so we're not going with that. Now, the show is also famous for the titular Dragon Balls themselves, which, once collected, let you wish for the impossible to happen. Now, that could be a fun, almost quest-like mechanic, kind of like the one in Dragon Ball Fighters, where you essentially complete small missions within the battle in order to cause amazing things to happen at the end. Now, although having Goku go on adventures in the middle of a duel does sound like it'd be fun, I'm not going to go with that one because we already have an archetype based around going on adventures during the game. It's called the Adventure archetype. And then there's what the show is actually most famous for, its love for Goku. Now, I don't mean how popular he is with the fans, but rather all of the unique abilities and powers that only Goku has, despite having aired for over 20 years. So let's go with that. This archetype will take all of the abilities and techniques that Goku has done over the years that are still somehow unique to him, with some additions here and there to make a more of a Goku archetype than a Dragon Ball Z one. Now I know what you're thinking. That's pretty much just Sky Strikers, isn't it? Well, you see, it's male Sky Strikers, so it's completely different. Now, as for the name of this archetype, with Yu-Gi-Oh archetypes, you can't just use licensed names because that's illegal. So we have to get a little bit creative. I'll be going with Dragon Fighter because it uses the word dragon and Konami hasn't used it yet. Now, with all that being said, now that we have our theme and our name, let's get into the cards one by one. And to make it a little interesting, I'm going to be going in chronological order. Starting with the way Goku even begins the series, that being the Saiyan pod that brought him to Earth. The first card will be Arrival of the Dragon Fighter, which, upon activation, adds one Dragon Fighter monster from your deck to your hand. This lets you get your Goku. But if you only control one Dragon Fighter monster, meaning if you already have Goku on the field, you get to add one Dragon Fighter spell trap from your deck instead. Essentially making this sort of the engage of the deck, if we're gonna keep using Sky Strikers as a reference here. This lets you get to not only your Gokus, but also your spells, and the spells are the most important part of your strategy here. Now on to the main man himself, Fierce Dragon Fighter Goku, who on summon lets you add one Dragon Fighter spell trap from your deck to your hand. And during your end phase, he lets you set one Dragon Fighter spell trap from your graveyard that has a different name from any spell traps you activated that turn, allowing him to not only be another sort of engage kind of card for your deck, but simultaneously he's also serving as a multi-role function, letting you reuse your Dragon Fighter spells. Now, to fully demonstrate the gimmick that I went with for this archetype, I want to go into Goku's first signature move ever, the Kamehameha. In this case called Breath of the Dragon Fighter. And if you only control one monster, it lets you target and destroy one spell trap your opponent controls. Then, if the only monster you control is a Dragon Fighter, or in this case a Goku, you can then send an additional card your opponent controls to the graveyard. So the gimmick, as you can tell, is you can only activate the signature moves if you control only one monster. They then gain additional bonuses if that one monster happens to be a Goku. Very much along the same vein as Sky Striker's bonus effects with you having 3 or more spells in your graveyard. So obviously for the next card, we have Goku's second ever signature move, the Dragon Fist. Look it up. Golden Fist of the Dragon Fighters. If you only control one monster, you get to target and destroy one monster your opponent controls. And if the only monster you control is a Goku, you then get to destroy one spell trap your opponent controls. So you can see here that the Kamehameha and the Dragon Fist are serving as sort of the afterburner and the jamming waves of this deck. So next up, I wanted there to be some sort of protection in this archetype. So I made this card, Dragon Fighter Combat Stance, based on Goku's Turtle Sage style, I think it's called. Yeah. If you only control one monster, that monster is unaffected by your opponent's spell traps until the end of the turn. If the only monster you control happens to be a Goku, it could also attack directly this turn. Obviously making this one more the ego booster of the deck, but this with a focus on offense rather than ego booster's defensive focus. Now, since every archetype apparently needs a field spell, we're going to go with, I guess this would be the area 0 of the deck, that being King Kai's Planet, World of the Dragon Fighter God. When this card is activated, you get to add one Dragon Fighter monster from your deck to your hand. And once per turn during your main phase, you can discard a card and search a Dragon Fighter spell trap. So essentially, the field spell kind of serves as 3 additional copies of both Goku and the Saiyan pods. And even works well with Goku's end phase effect, so he can recover any Dragon Fighter spell trap you discarded to activate this effect. Now, I used King Kai's Planet for a reason, as Goku learned 2 very important signature moves on that planet. The first being the next card, the Kaioken, here called Burning Fist of the Dragon Fighter. And on activation, it lets you target your one monster and increase its attack by 1,000. Then, if that one monster happens to be a Goku, he gets to inflict double battle damage for the turn. So much like in the anime, this would be a desperate move used to inflict a bunch of damage in a single exchange with the opponent, and would pair very well with the Combat Stance card as it would let you attack directly for a total of 6,000 damage without any other equip spells. Now for the other move that Goku learned on King Kai's Planet, we have Spirit Orb of the Dragon Fighter. For the Spirit Bomb, if you control only one monster, you get to shuffle as many spells from your graveyard into your deck, and if you do, destroy all monsters your opponent controls whose level or rank is less than or equal to the number of spells you shuffled. If the one monster you control happens to be a Goku, you then get to draw one card for each monster you destroyed. Now, I could say this is to reference how Goku performs this attack by gaining energy from those around him or some sort of reward. No, turns out I just really like Thunder Force Attack. It's a fun card. So there's been a severe lack of trap cards in this video, and for good reason, because I only made one. And for that trap card, I'm going with Goku's Instantaneous Transmission, here called Dragon Fighter Vanish Technique, which, when your opponent activates a card or effect that would destroy any card you control, you can banish one monster you control, and if you do, negate the activation and destroy it. Then, if the monster you banished with this effect is a Goku, he is then special summoned back at the beginning of the next battle phase or end phase, whichever one comes first. Now, for the last card, I wanted to do at least one interesting thing for this archetype, something that you don't see too much of in the game at the moment. And criminally, there's not enough inherent summoning from the deck. Obviously for good reason, but I figure a deck focused on only ever controlling one guy could get away with it. So for the last card, I'm throwing the Dragon Ball Super fans a little bit of a bone and going with Ultra Instinct. Here we have Perfect Dragon Fighter Goku. If a light warrior with 2,000 attack that you control is destroyed by your opponent's card effect, you can special summon this card from your hand or deck. If this card is attacked, you can banish it until the end phase. And if you do, end the battle phase and then draw a card. During your end phase, if this is on the field, you get to set up to 2 Dragon Fighter spell traps from your graveyard. This is ignoring the limitation that regular Goku has, by the way. You could set 2 of the same. You could set 2 of ones that you would use that turn. You can keep resetting whichever ones you want, because this would probably be the point where Goku wins. And there you have it. My take on DBZ as a Yu-Gi-Oh archetype. And I had a lot of fun putting these cards together. And I think it's not a bad start. There's some obvious weaknesses, and it definitely has terrible matchups in the game right now. But what deck in Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't have those, really? But let me know what you guys think. how do you feel about these cards? Which ones are trash? Which ones need fixing? Let me know in the comments below. And if you have suggestions for animes you would like to see turned into Yu-Gi-Oh archetypes, definitely let me know. Follow me on Twitter, suggest them there, or post in the comments. However, if you thought these cards are cool, maybe you thought they were interesting and you're interested in them, every card I made for this video is available for use on Dueling Book. So you can go on there, build with these cards, test them out, show that they would warp the meta, or meta can even salvage these cards because they're that bad. Would definitely love to see your deck list. Now, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Maybe you'd like to give a like, maybe subscribe if you want to see more. Follow me on social medias. I'm UpgradeJ on pretty much all of them. Maybe you have to write it a different way on some of them. For more content, I have a TikTok where I whip up cards from time to time. Also, I make these cards live on Twitch, so if you can follow me on Twitch, you'll get to see the next anime that'll be in the works. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.